Hello everyone, Jeff here with you for episode number 10 of the Wednesday Night Wrestling Blitz here on YouTube. It is a GMTE Express add-on exclusive. Let's get right into the action here. We'll start with AEW first. It took place from the State Farm Arena in Champaign, Illinois, on the campus of the University of Illinois at Champaign. We had six-man tag team action open up the show here. We had the Young Bucks teaming up with Dustin Rhodes. They took on members of the Inner Circle, those being Sammy Guevara and Santana and Ortiz, also known as Pretty and Powerful here. Good stuff here. A lot of great action here. Every guy got a chance to shine during the match. We had Rhodes at one point. He kicked out of a 630 senton from Guevara late in the match. Then, that move was opened up by Santana and Ortiz using the sock full of baseballs. The finish of the match came when Nick Jackson came off the top rope, hitting Santana and Ortiz for spike power drivers by Rhodes and then Mac Jackson while landing a senton on the Guevara. So it was kind of a spike power driver senton combination here, and Nick Jackson actually got the pin on Sammy Guevara to win for his team. So great match. I'm not doing it any justice by how I'm describing it, but this was easily, I thought, the best match on the entire show here. So make sure to go out of your way and check this out. Just some good stuff here. Next up, we had singles competition. We had Phoenix taking on Trent Beretta here. It was a good match. This was a follow-up to a match they had last week here, which was tag team action. So we had singles competition here. We had Trent pin Pentagon Jr. in a singles match on AEW Dark a few weeks ago. And then also he pinned Phoenix last week on Dynamite in the tag match to give the Best Friends the win there. So a lot of good stuff here. It was okay. Phoenix does get some revenge here at the Lucha Bros as well here. He pins Trent Beretta after a decent match with the spinning muscle buster for the win, so they get a much needed win here. Cody Rhodes, he was out for a in-ring promo here. This was an outstanding promo from Cody Rhodes, I should say. Cody just continuing to knock it out, and you know what made this promo so good was that nobody came out to interrupt, nobody appeared on the big screen. Cody was able to say what he had to say here. So basically, he was talking about his recent failures and the attack by the Butcher and the Blade. And then he wanted to wrestle them tonight, but of course that didn't happen. So they will have a match next week, which we'll talk about here in a moment. Then he says he needs to wrestle MJF, despite MJF's claims that he would never wrestle him. He called him a hood rich with his scarf being fake and all that. He referred to him, MJF, as an NWO version of Chris Jericho. So kind of a little bit of a dig there. He said he would give MJF his Ford truck, his watch, his shoes, and then a briefcase, which they showed here, filled with $50,000, over $50,000 matter of fact, and $100 of it, which he actually gave to a kid in the crowd. And it was a real $100 bill, so that was cool to the kid to get that $100 bill. Of course, why couldn't I be that lucky? It was announced later on in the show that it will be the Butcher and the Blade taking on Cody, and they've selected as his partner QT Marshall. So that match will happen on next week's show. So afterwards, we had a backstage promo of Joey Janela hyping up his match for Moxley. Moxley actually walks into the shot and actually kind of pulls the flames out here, kind of burns out Janela's promo here with just a simple saying of kids and all that. Just the way he did it, though, and just kind of took away the steam here from Janela. So they would have that match later on, which we'll talk about in the main event. The Dark Order had their latest vignette here, again discussing what they're all about here. Again, pretty good overall, so we had that. Nyla Rose took on Leva Bates here in the next match. This was nothing more than a showcase for Rose to dominate, to show her dominance here and continue to pick up momentum going forward. She had her way with Leva Bates. Of course, she's the librarian. We actually saw Peter Avalon actually go into the ring and literally go into the ring right in front of the referee. Referee didn't disqualify Leva Bates here. I guess he never laid a hand on her. Leva actually tried to come up from behind and actually hit Nyla Rose with a book. She no-sold, of course. She hits the double choke slam on both of them, and then she ultimately hits the Beast Bomb on to Leva Bates for the win. And then for good measure, she actually hit another one as well. So They had shown this video of Nyla Rose attacking Shanna at a meet and greet here recently, where they powerbombed her through a table there. So Shanna does come out and tries to go after Nyla Rose here. She gets her for a little bit, but Nyla Rose was able to turn the tables on her, and then she actually brought out a table from underneath the ring. And of course, the referee in there is trying to stop the whole thing. The referee ate a powerbomb through the table, and then ultimately Shanna, for the second straight time, also ate a powerbomb through the table onto the referee. And of course, they did this thing here where they showed Britt Baker in the crowd. It's the same thing that NXT did at the War Games, showing the expressed look when her guy Adam Cole had went through the table in that main event match. So they did it here. They replicated the same shot. Clearly, they copied what NXT was doing here, and it just, I don't know why they needed to do that here. It came off to me as very petty. Obviously, they saw what they did at NXT, so they tried to replicate it here. Clearly, like I said, no reason to be doing that. I don't know what was gained by it. To me, there was nothing gained by it, and to me, it just comes off as very petty, and then, again, just trying to duplicate what NXT did there. So, my advice to them is worry about what you're doing. Don't worry about what the competition is doing. It's that simple. Really no reason why they needed to have Britt Baker do that here on the show. Next up, we had Chris Jericho. He was out for a promo here. Again, good stuff from Chris Jericho, as he always comes through with his great promos. He mentions about how AEW officials have informed him that he is contractually obligated to defend his title one more time in 2019. And he brings out the Lexicon of Le Champion, which is basically a variation of the list that he used to do in WWE. The fans obviously knew all about that. He read this lengthy list of who he would not defend the title against, of course saying Jon Moxley's name multiple times throughout. He also mentioned the name Alan Jones, and for those of you who don't know who Alan Jones is, that's AJ Styles' real name. Of course, AJ Styles in WWE, and of course Jericho and Styles did have a program back in, I believe it was 2016 for a short time. So a little nod there to AJ Styles here in this promo. Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus and Marco Stunt all come out to interrupt the list reading here. Jericho said that the lexicon included dinosaurs and little children. Luchasaurus touted his own master's degree and said that Stunt may be, quote, small for his age, but is more of a man than Jericho will ever be. Jericho said that Jungle Boy could not last 10 minutes with him, and Jungle Boy rebutted by saying he knows that he can. He throws down a challenge for December 18th, which will happen. So that will likely be the main event for the next to last show. Actually, will be the last show for 2019, because there will be no show on Christmas, which we'll talk about. So that's been made official. Jungle Boy and Jericho for the title on the December 18th episode of AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite. Women's action was up next here. We had Chris Statlander taking on Hikaru Shida here. These two teamed up last week in a losing effort. This was actually a pretty good match, I thought. A lot of good stuff here. Ultimately, Chris Statlander actually got the surprise win by pinning the number one women's contender here, Shida, with the Big Bang Theory, which is the package Tombstone Power Driver, and actually beat her clean in the middle of the ring with no outside interference, no shenanigans from anyone here. So a big win from Statlander, and it was announced later on that Chris Statlander has indeed officially signed with AEW, so congratulations to her. Of course, she is, Statlander is this one that's into the aliens and all that kind of stuff, so, I mean, that's cool for her to get the AEW contract, so congratulations to her. So after the match, the lights went out, and then we see Awesome Kong and Brandy Rhodes make their way out. Brandy Rhodes talks about her new faction, which is called the Nightmare Collective, which, by the way, I'm not a fan of the name. And I will say, before I go on, I want to make one note here. What Brandy Rhodes was wearing here, what the hell was that? I mean, seriously, it was clear what they were going for there with that, trying to get that 18 to 34 demographic up in the ratings, so it was not a good look for her, I didn't think. It made her look cheap, which she is not. I thought it was a bad look. And of course, Awesome Kong, of course, the presence that she is. So anyways, Brandy would eventually ask Statlander to pledge herself to the group, and then they would take care of her. Before, of course, Statlander actually stood up to them both and said no. before anything else happened, a female plant in the crowd there shouted that she would pledge. So they actually invited her into the ring, and she actually allowed Awesome Kong to cut her hair off. So yeah, we got another cult storyline here, which, you know, the fans weren't really into it. I wasn't really into it either, and that's what we had here. And by the way, the female plant that was in the crowd was indie wrestler Melanie Cruz, probably best known for her work in Shimmer. And it was later announced that she has officially signed with AEW, so we're going to be seeing more of her going forward. So there you go. Singles action was up next. We had Pentagon Jr. taking on Christopher Daniels here in competition. They had the match. I thought it was fine for what it was. Not really a whole lot to the match. Ultimately, towards the end of the match here, Phoenix had ran in as Daniels had hit the Angel's wings on the Pentagon Jr., and then he ultimately slid Daniels' microphone stand into the ring. Daniels avoided Pentagon using the stand, but he got caught with a low blow, and ultimately Pentagon Jr. won the match after that low blow with a package power driver for the win, so they get some retribution here. Lucha Bros had a good night overall, so there you go. Your main event for the night was a Fyter Fest rematch here. They had the Lights Out match, but it wasn't here on the show. We had Jon Moxley taking on Joey Janela here in the main event for the show. This was not nearly as good as their match at Fyter Fest. This felt a little more rushed, a little sloppy at times, I thought. Ultimately, in the end, at one point, Janela had put Moxley through a table at ringside and then actually hit a top rope elbow drop for a very close near fall. Ultimately, Moxley was able to recover and actually hit a pair of paradigm shifts. He actually hit one off the top rope at one point, then he actually hit one in the center of the ring for the win. And then at the end, we see Jericho in the inner circle enter through the arena, through the crowd, to kind of mock what Moxley had done last week. So they did a deal. They had a stare down from a distance as Jericho was holding up the title as they went off the air. So there you go. That was AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite from the State Farm Arena in Champaign, Illinois. Of course, NXT, taking place from Full Sail University in Winter Park, Florida. Mauro Ranallo was back here after a brief absence. Of course, we've talked about that on the podcast. He got a big standing ovation here, and the fans did the Mamma Mia chant for him. So they're clearly behind Mauro Ranallo, and basically it tells you what they think of Corey Graves. Opening contest on the night was supposed to be Killian Dane taking on Damian Priest, but of course Damian Priest is out injured right now, so Pete Dunne was named the replacement after Killian Dane had asked for someone to come out. So we had that. So it was a pretty good match, I thought. Entertaining stuff, physical indeed. We saw Pete Dunne selling a left knee injury that was still heavily taped throughout the match. At one point here towards the end of the match, they had Pete Dunne and Killian Dane battling on the top rope. We had the Bruiserweight being Pete Dunne locking a sleeper, thinking that he had the match in hand. However, Killian Dane actually kind of did like the electric chair, except he did it off the ropes here this time, and actually fell back on Pete Dunne, and actually that was enough to win the match. So Dane was on top of him, and that was enough to get the win here for Killian Dane, a big win for him here. Dakota Kai did an interview backstage with Kathy Riley next. She goes on to say that Tegan Nox is not worth her time anymore, and then she claims that she merely gave Rhea Ripley what she wanted all along by having that at War Games, and then tonight she said she would take out Rhea Ripley in the match that they were scheduled to have. So, and of course the line she also mentioned, Dakota Kai, was that Mia Yim is a, quote, hood rat. So that was kind of an interesting line. Undisputed Era was out for a promo here. Of course, Bobby Fish was nowhere to be found. He's out injured again, so hopefully he will be back in the near future. Of course, Adam Cole is talking about the group having a November to Remember. And then Cole referenced the hilarious Keith Lee pounce that sent him into the crowd last week. And then the crowd chanted "Bask in His Glory." The NXT champion then turned his attention to Finn Balor, demanding answers for the attack that took place last week on the show. It was, but before that, anything else happened. Keith Lee emerged and made his way to the ring. Kyle O'Reilly taunted Lee for being nothing more than a, quote, moment maker. and losing to Roman Reigns at Survivor Series. And then Keith Lee ultimately sized up each member of the Undisputed Era and said he was trying to figure out which title he wanted to take first. Undisputed Era attack. Keith Lee, Ciampa comes out to make the save. That sends the Undisputed Era packing. And it looked like Cole was going to eat a spirit bomb, but the other members got him out of there. And then Undisputed Era took off. So that's what we had there. Non-title action was next here for the women. We had Shayna Baszler, your NXT Women's Champion, taking on Xyla Lee here. A short little match here. Xyla Lee got a chance to shine a little bit. She got a little bit of offense and a couple hope spots, but ultimately Shayna Baszler won in the end with the Kurafia clutch to get the submission wins. So not really much more to say about it than that. Shayna Baszler just looks strong here in this situation. We had the Forgotten Sons taking on Adrian Alanis and Leon Ruff. Those two gentlemen are from Evolve, so they got a chance to get some TV time here on the show. This was a squash for the Forgotten Sons. They won in pretty short order here. At one point, Alanis was on the receiving end of a brutal stump from Steve Cutler, and then afterwards, Ruff, who was trying to get to his partner, ate a chokeslam from Jason Reichert, who is ultimately the breakout star of the group. So Forgotten Sons get a win here, and I think everyone's pretty much forgotten about the match already. Dakota Kai was out for her scheduled match with Rhea Ripley next, and then we see Rhea Ripley come out here. So they were going to have this match, but they do the old bait and switch here. Basically, Rhea Ripley commends Dakota Kai for the setup on the baby faces at War Games, but Rhea Ripley says that funny thing about setups started happening right now. Mia Yim's music hits, and then they have a little pull apart. They have a little fight here. It's really never a match. Ultimately, Dakota Kai and Mia Yim worked their way through the crowd into the back, never to be seen again. So Rhea Ripley's out there. The Horsewomen do come out here. They do a beatdown on Rhea Ripley here. Ultimately, Shayna Baszler gets the Kofita clutch in on Rhea Ripley a couple of times. She's able to battle out of it initially, but then one more time she got the clutch on to Rhea. She tried to make the rope. The other two women, being Marina Shafir and Jasmine Duke, held her arms so she couldn't get out of it. And then ultimately, Rhea Ripley fell victim to the clutch and passed out while Baszler choked her out. And then basically, this was to showcase Baszler here to get her some heat on Rhea Ripley here. And then Rhea, while she was passed out, Shayna got a little promo saying that, you know, how Rhea wants the title match, Shayna wants a title match, and then they're going to have that match on December 18th, of course. So we're getting that title match on the final NXT show of the year. So we have that coming up. Finn Balor was next for a pre-taped promo. He said that the Undisputed Era thought that they had the ultimate prize last week in him, but they got a shock to the system. And then Finn Balor reminded everyone that there will be no flag to carry if it wasn't for him. Then he called back to the line that the future will be his past before finishing with a message to Adam Cole of checkmates. So Finn Balor sending a message there. Singles action was next. We had Matt Riddle taking on Cassius Ohno. Cassius Ohno making his return here from NXT UK. He's here for a good match here. I thought this was a solid match here. Good stuff. Physical stuff here from both of these guys. Ultimately, in the end, Matt Riddle continues his dominance over Ohno. He got the win by hitting the Bro Derek for the win. So Matt Riddle's now 4-0 all-time against Cassius Ohno. So, again, I thought this was a pretty good match. I thought this may have been the best match on the entire show. We see Kushida. He was out for his match here. He's back from injury here after suffering a wrist injury at the main event match with Walter. Kushida was scheduled to be taking on Raul Mendoza. Cameron Grimes actually attacks Mendoza during the entrance and took him out. So Cameron Grimes takes his spot here. It's a good match from these guys. Ultimately, to the end here, Kushida actually reversed a German suplex attempt into a pinfall for the win. So Kushida gets a big win here, and They didn't give the match a lot of time. You know they're going to probably have a rematch down the line here, but some good stuff here overall from these guys. Your main event for the night is six-man tag action. We have Keith Lee, Tommaso Ciampa, and Dominik Dijakovic. That's their partner that was selected. They take on the Undisputed Era. So basically it's a rematch of sorts from War Games. A lot of good stuff here. We see Finn Balor. He made his way through the crowd and took out Adam Cole with a shotgun dropkick into the corner before laying out Ciampa with the 1916. As Lee took out Balor with the Spirit Bomb, Cole was looking to capitalize after recovering. He nailed Lee with a super kick. He pulled down the knee pad in preparation for the last shot, but Lee caught him and actually earned the victory after a jackhammer. So the babyfaces get the win here. And then post-match, General Manager William Regal makes an appearance here. He entered the Full Sail Arena to announce that next week, Tommaso Ciampa, Finn Balor, and Keith Lee will square off for the right to challenge Adam Cole for the NXT title, which will happen, of course, on December 18th, which is the pre-Christmas NXT show, of course. So, yeah, so obviously they're loading up that show as well. So there you go. That is NXT that took place from Full Sail University. Which show is my pick of the week? Which show gets my recommendation? I thought both shows were pretty good this week, but I'm going to go with AEW as my pick for the week here. I thought from start to finish, I thought their action was just a little bit better than NXT's. The one thing that really rubbed me wrong with NXT was the bait and switch of the women's match between Dakota Kai and Rhea Ripley. They did the bait and switch I was not a fan of, so I had to subtract for that. Even though AEW, of course, they did the thing with Britt Baker, which kind of I didn't really like, and then you had the squash with Nyla Rose, but that was just to make her look strong. But overall, I still thought AEW from start to finish just slightly had the better action here, so I give them my pick of the week. So through 10 weeks, I have NXT with 6 recommendations and AEW with 4. Real quickly here, let's just go over the ratings here for the Wednesday night shows this week. NXT had won the last 2 weeks going into this week's action. However, AEW did win for the week in total viewership. They got back on track. They barely won this week. They had 851,000 viewers, while NXT had 845,000 viewers. So Dynamite beat NXT by less than 1% in the ratings this week. AEW ranked 8th in the Cable Top 150, and NXT ranked 12th. AEW ranked 33rd in total viewership, while NXT was ranked 34th. Of course, those the Cable Top 150s for the 18 to 49 demo were AEW ranked 8th and NXT ranked 12th. AEW drew a 0.32 rating in the 18 to 49 demo, while NXT did a 0.29 in the same demo. So AEW won by 10.3%, which is smaller than it has been. So, but yeah, both shows were up this week compared to last week, because last week, of course, being the holiday week. So NXT loses, but very close here. AEW gets back on track. So through 10 weeks, AEW leads 8-2 as far as wins by total viewers. So we have that. And then just real quickly here, we do have the numbers from WWE Backstage that took place this week on Fox Sports 1. Their viewership was actually up 14% to 138,000 viewers from 121,000 viewers. Seth Rollins was the featured guest this week for the show, so viewership was up slightly, but still down from the premiere episode from the CM Punk premiere, which did 180,000 viewers. This week's episode ranked 103 on the Cable Top 150, was a 0.08 rating in the 18 to 49 demos, so which is actually up from last week's 0.05 rating, and which ranked 125. So they need to get out of that Tuesday night at 11 p.m. Eastern time slot. They got to do something about that. So there you go. Let me know down in the comments section below what your favorite moment from Wednesday's action was, and we'll see you the next time right here for the next episode of the Wednesday Night Wrestling Blitz. Bye for now, everyone.